When runways have been bombed and conventional aircraft either destroyed or grounded, the Harrier can still strike back.
The Harrier, informally referred to as the Harrier Jump Jet, is a family of jet-powered attack aircraft capable of vertical and short takeoff and landing operations with the acronym VSTOL. This jet was originally developed by British manufacturer Hawker Siddeley in the 1960s. The Harrier emerged as the only successful VSTOL design of the many attempted during that era. It was conceived to operate from improvised bases, such as car parks or forest clearings, without requiring large and vulnerable air bases. The design was then adapted for use from aircraft carriers. It is probably the Harrier that is the most iconic British fighter design, and it was one of the few aircraft sold to the US in numbers. So, why was it retired? A total of 28 Sea Harriers and 14 Harrier GR3s were deployed. The Sea Harrier squadrons shot down 20 Argentine aircraft in air-to-air combat with no air-to-air losses. Out of the total Argentine air losses, 28% were shot down by Harriers. The Harrier returned from the Falklands as an icon, cementing the reputation of British aircraft design. Second-generation Harrier II went on to see action in Bosnia, Iraq, and Afghanistan. It was a fighter that was proven in combat, and if it needed to, it could even land on a shipping container. Moreover, throughout the 1950s and 1960s, a number of aircraft companies separately decided to investigate the viability of vertical or short takeoff and landing. The concrete runways that jet aircraft required were vulnerable to attack, and the solution was to develop an aircraft that could take off virtually anywhere like they could in the Second World War. VSTOL aircraft would be able to take off, land, and refuel anywhere. Jets would be able to hide in wood blocks, improvised bases, or car parks without demanding large and vulnerable air bases. As early as 1951, there were outstanding designs that had aircraft taking off vertically, like rockets from warships. In the 60s, the US was making failed VSTOL prototypes a bit of a bad habit. Swiveling engines on wings, lift fans, separate lift jets. The ideas were new and adventurous. There was even a moment in history when companies were trying to make large, cargo aircraft that could take off on short runways and land vertically. The Harrier Jump Jet, capable of taking off vertically, can only do so at less than its maximum loaded weight. In most cases, a short takeoff is needed to lift the required amount of fuel and weapons needed for a training sortie mission, using forward speed to supplement the jet lift with aerodynamic lift. A short takeoff also required less fuel than a vertical takeoff. On aircraft carriers, a ski jump ramp is used at the bow of the carrier to help the aircraft become airborne. Landings are not usually done in a conventional manner because the range of speeds at which this is advisable is narrow due to the relatively vulnerable outrigger undercarriage. Operationally, a near-vertical landing with some forward speed is preferred, in which this technique is called shipborne rolling vertical landing. It was announced that during 2010, the Royal Air Force and Royal Navy would retire their remaining Harriers by 2011, and in December 2010, the Royal Air Force's Harrier GR9 made their last operational flights. Also in June 2011, the Military of Defense denied press reports that the aircraft were to be sold to the U.S. Marine Corps for spares to support their AV-8B fleet. However, at the end of November 2011, Defense Minister Peter Luff announced the sale of the final 72 Harriers to the U.S. Marine Corps, with the aircraft to be used as sources of spare parts for the Marine Corps airworthy fleet. As of June 2015, the Stavel variant of the F-35 Lightning II, which was formerly the Joint Strike Fighter, designated the F-35B, was intended to replace the AV-8B Harrier II in service with the U.S. Marine Corps, while the Royal Air Force and Royal Navy were scheduled to introduce the F-35B in 2016 with their first F-35 unit, 617 Squadron. That's all for today. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.